Happy Friday. In this Friday tip, we're going to do a quick little tip that I think is still quite helpful. And let me know in the description if you like these really short tips, like less than 5 minutes or so. This one is about using the model knowledge. So I'm just going to kind of show you where this is in the product first. So here I am in one of my Copilots. And you'll notice down here under the section knowledge, I don't know, maybe I can zoom in a little bit. You'll see I have some knowledge sources, but at the very top of the knowledge sources is allow the AI to use its own general knowledge. Now, this was always feasible before, but now you have the option to turn it off and say, don't use the AI knowledge. So I want to just use today's tip to kind of talk about when you might decide to enable versus when you might decide to disable. And by the way, you can do this on each generative answers node in a topic as well. You'll have this exact same button. And maybe I'll just show you that as well. So if I go into a topic node, I could have gone to conversational boosting. That's what I should have done. All right, so here is a create generative AI node. If I click edit on the sources, you will see both the option to select which sources for this particular node, and underneath that, you'll see allow the AI to use its own generative knowledge. So you can turn it off here as well. All right, so let's talk about why you would and why you might not. Okay, so when I think it's good to enable is when the general internet knowledge can be complementary to the goal. Like for instance, that Copilot is about reducing your carbon footprint. And so it's educating people on what they can do in the area of transportation, energy, waste, and dietary guidelines for reducing their carbon footprint. And specific sites and documents were chosen. But we decided that the model's knowledge could be complementary. We're fairly safe with using internet knowledge on carbon footprint, right? And so we went ahead and enabled it. Now, of course, it will look for the knowledge that you have configured. But we went ahead and enabled it just in case. If it didn't find something there, it could leverage its own knowledge. Always remember, we are not training the model. That has already been done by OpenAI. And that training done by OpenAI of the model actually covers a lot of content, generally known on the internet. So when we talk about model knowledge, we never really change that knowledge, but we can allow our copilots to use it. On the other hand, we do ground those LLM models with additional data, which is what you see in the knowledge tab. Okay, so I'll give you an example of another thing here. You want to think about conflict with your corporate strategy or your business rules, okay? So I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm Contoso Car Company and I sell electric cars at Contoso, all right? And my corporate strategy is to sell X amount of cars, over year, and to, grow my business in selling electronic cars. So if my Copilot is asked, what's the best electronic car on the market for X? And it returns a link to a Tesla car, that might conflict with my corporate strategy because I'm not trying to sell for Tesla, I'm trying to sell for Contoso. So I might turn off that external knowledge because I don't really want it selling Tesla for me, right? I want to make sure it's only offering stuff from my own content, my own website. However, let's stick with cars for a minute. Let's go back a minute to my Contoso electric car company, right? I might have a very strong amount of content or database records showing all the cars that I sell, their make, their model, their year, their price, their lease type or purchase type. Um, all that information is in my data or in my website. Okay. And so therefore anyone can ask information about the Contoso electric cars. Now, however, I didn't have in my database the number of doors on each car, like 2 doors versus 4 doors, right? Now, if I have the allow the Copilot to use its own knowledge enabled, if my Contoso vehicles are well known on the internet, then it can probably pick up how many doors it has from the knowledge it has already. It doesn't need my database to have that. So somebody could ask, tell me about your 2-door vehicles for model type A. Or do you have a set of 4-door vehicles which are electric of make X? And it could leverage the database to know which models we sell, but its own knowledge to say whether or not they're 2 or 4 door because they're well-known models on the internet. So in that case, you had a complementary situation that did not conflict with corporate strategy or business rules. Make sense? So these are two things I would think of. The last thing I would just remind you of is that most of the time I like to remind people when it comes to generating answers using AI, you would avoid scenarios that are highly litigious or where an answer being wrong could be a safety risk. So those would still be scripted topics. They wouldn't leverage the AI, and therefore whether or not this is enabled would not matter. Okay? So I hope this is helpful to you and that you get something out of it. Let me know in the chat if you like these really short tips, and I'll make it a point to keep them shorter. Thank you and have a happy weekend and enjoy your experience.